Hey folks, hope you are all doing well. Last time we started talking about how personality shows up in the workplace, particularly with regards to thinking and feeling types. We're continuing that conversation today, but taking a deeper dive into personality at work. Why do certain types of people gravitate towards certain careers? And what do you do when you just don't get along with your coworkers who have different personality types or even the same personality type? These are loaded questions, but I hope this episode can shed some light on this for you. I think you're going to like it, and I hope you can take away some practical tips, whatever your career path is. Enjoy. Welcome to the new Myers-Briggs Question Corner. I'm Edith Richards.
And I'm Mark Maffey.
And we're here to answer your questions about all things personality and all things Myers-Briggs.
From college to careers to relationships, personality is the key to finding the right fit.
Hey there, Mark. How are you today?
I'm great, Edith. It's 1,000 degrees outside, but I'm glad we're doing this recording in the 21st century where there's AC inside. That's crazy.
I'm telling you, you have got that right. The air quality is it's something else, isn't it?
It's horrible. And I'm used to it because I played football before and I've been normally playing my summers outside, but it is oppressive out there. Like I walk outside and I'm like, people are working outside. This is unbelievable. Like everybody needs to have an AC unit. I feel like walking up to everybody who's working outside and giving them like a popsicle and be like, Hey, here's a popsicle. Here's an ice cream sandwich. I think I'm going to actually do that because It's crazy.
Or even just some water, some cold water or even any water. Yeah.
It shows you my health level when my first thing to cure thirst and heat is an icicle pop. You're so totally right. Water would be a better option. And talking about water, I was talking to somebody who said that they were vacationing in Miami and they said that the water temperature was like 100 degrees. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what are you supposed to do with that? Like that totally eliminates the reason of going to the beach in my estimation.
I know. Yeah, it's like bath water, right? Like what's the point? And I mean, really, really concerning too. I mean, I don't think we've ever had this in the history of the world, and so concerning. And it reminds me of this study when we were talking about this and I'm hearing the news, like, of course, my mind goes to personality. And so I'm going to find a way to relate that to personality in some way, being who I am. And I read this study a few years back about how climate influences personality. And, the nuts and bolts of it are that temperature might affect how people go out and explore their outdoor surroundings and interact with other people. And also it might affect how people do collective type work with others as a community, like farming or other types of collective activities. So what the researchers found is that people who grow up in like milder climates tend to be more agreeable, tend to be more emotionally stable, and interestingly enough, more extroverted. So it's interesting to think about climate influencing social interactions among people. Of course, there's a lot of other things that factor into how we develop. And, we've talked about that for a bit, but it's interesting to think about this and how this might play out as, temperatures continue to rise.
Yeah, I had no idea that, climate, actual like physical temperature climate may actually impact your personality, but I can see that, right? I can just like how society climate is something that I know that we're going to talk about later on in some of our podcasts, that anytime groups are doing certain things, right? So certain groups might do a certain activity based on the climate, like that might actually impact the collective and might actually have an impact on your own individual personality. So I'm really, really glad we're able to explore not just the basis of who you are and what your personality type is, but why you might end up having a certain personality type and why certain elements might actually impact your personality to look at your behavior. I just think this whole conversation of personality type is just really allowing us to almost be like a observer, like a social scientist in the way that we behave. I think that's pretty awesome for us to evaluate the way that we behave at times. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, it's just cool to know that people are studying things like this. I mean, there's just so many interesting topics out there that people actually get paid to study, which is very cool. And speaking of which, the last time we were together, we took a deep dive into the 4 dichotomies of the Myers-Briggs. And to all our listeners tuning in, we hope that you have a clearer understanding of what these dichotomies each mean. And when we talk about the Myers-Briggs, we often talk about career choice. That's one of the main reasons people take the assessment, is they're looking for some career guidance or a career that suits their personality. And to be fair, there's a lot that goes into why we choose the career paths we do. Personality is one factor for sure, but it's not the only factor. Ability is another. So if I'm not really good at math, I'm definitely going to consider that if I'm looking at careers in engineering. That doesn't mean that I absolutely can't become an engineer and get better at math, but I may have a tougher journey than someone who's a natural at math. And then, of course, there's our family and our culture and how that influences our career choices and, just our overall interests. But I say this to say that personality does factor in, and it's a big factor when we're thinking about not only our careers, but our workplaces. But I don't want you all to think that this is the only factor in your choice. It's just one piece of the pie.
No, I like that idea. It's really important to look at the different factors that lead to fit. And I've always thought it's an important factor to find a fit to whatever career you're in, whether it's a fit with your abilities, your passions, or your personality, because when you go to work, I don't think there's a more impactful thing that we do within our day than what we do with our job. And I always used to tell this to my students. For you guys who don't know, I used to always tell them, we're going to spend about a third of our life working, and half of our day, like half of our actual waking hours, is going to be spent at work. And that doesn't count the time that you have to drive to work, stuck in traffic, doing work at home, talking to your spouse about the frustrations that you have at work. So I'm really glad that we're getting into this discussion about work today, because I really don't think that there's anything more important than your fit in your work. Work can be a place that energizes you and refreshes you. Think about the times when you're able to do the things that really engage you, right? It is like, when you're able to do those activities that engage you, doesn't it energize you, refresh you? It kind of puts you in a flow state, right? Like where time slows down and you're really focused and really, really productive.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And, on the flip side of that, when you are not doing things that energize you and it just drains you, that it's not good. And type theory actually tells us that if you're using your type preferences at work 51% of the time, you're likely going to be satisfied and productive. But there's a lot of nuances with that too. But it goes to show just how important it is for all of us to reflect on this and find work tasks and work environments that support our preferences. So yeah, when you think about times that you're able to do the things that really engage you, like you're talking about, Mark, that engage you and refresh you and put you in this flow state, where time just kind of slows down and you're so focused and you're really productive.
And I really think it goes to like anything that we do in life, right? It is like, it's my personality type speaking here, but because I'm a very idealistic individual. But why can't our workplace be like anything else that we choose? Like when I go to dinner, I don't order, less than 50% of the things that I don't want to do or don't like. Like I don't order food that I don't like. I'm hoping I'm ordering at least 51% of the things that I like. Like in anything I go to, when I go on vacation, I don't select a vacation where I'm not doing less than 50% of the things that I really want to do, I'm not going to spend my time with that. So it's just really, really funny how every other aspect of life, we're all about choosing things. Like now I'm on a streaming service. I'm not choosing shows that I'm not going to enjoy more than 51% of the time. Like
Yeah.
that research definitely makes sense. And I think when it comes down to it, like I think we need to be doing our work, not just going to work. Like do your work, like the work that is set out for you because of your temperament or different abilities, passions, those sorts of things. And again, like I know I'm sounding idealistic and it's part of my personality type being an INFP, but like I would love for us to create a system where we can actually do our work, do work that fits our personality type, our abilities, our passions, so that when we go to our workplace, we gain energy and we're inspired so we can actually do the real jobs of relating with others, being great parents, being great spouses, brothers, sisters, and friends, and serving others and mankind. And I really do believe in that system. Like, I really do believe that work is provided for us to give us energy to do the things that really matter, and taking care of our kids and serving others. And I think so many times how many people are really stressed out when they go home to their kids because of their work. I think that's really, really a shame. Just imagine what kind of world that we can have if we had work that actually fit our personality type. That'd be pretty cool.
It would be pretty cool. And what you're saying here, it's because I'm right there with you, Mark. I'm that idealistic person too. And I have a friend. In fact, it's really interesting because it's an ENFP friend of mine. So same personality type as mine, who truly believes that work is not meant to be fun. Work is named work for a reason. And when I hear that, it's painful. It's truly painful for me to hear that because I do not hold that belief at all. Work can be fun. Work can be stimulating and engaging. And, I see a lot of articles on these subjects, especially recently. These are hot topics in the world of leadership and human resources. And, it's really unfortunate to me to see that there's so much talk about this, about how we need workspaces that accommodate everyone. But honestly, I see very little of it being done in practice. So folks, if you are a leader who's tuning in, I really like to invite you to please pay attention here because you have added influence. You can help your people and your organization for the better. And, Mark, I know we're talking about being idealists here, but I do think there's a link between what we love to do now as adults and what we loved to do as a child, like our earliest career memory. Like, what did we want to be when we grew up? In fact, this is one of my favorite questions to ask people when I start talking about personality and careers. So, Mark, how about you? Do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up? Did you have any childhood dreams of being an astronaut or a veterinarian or a police officer or a president or anything like that?
Yeah, yes. It's funny. You think, and I do use that a lot for kids. What do you want to do when you grow up? And I frankly don't remember a lot of those conversations when in my household and where I grew up. I was born in Jamaica. Jamaicans are known to really, really work hard. And we didn't really get that conversation of, what would be your ideal job and what would be your dream job? Like they believed kind of like what your friend believed, Edith, which is your job is what you do to work. Like your weekends when you get a chance to do the things that you really want to do, right? But like it's called work for a reason. I remember my mom and dad used to always say that, like, especially when we came to this country, because I was born in Jamaica, but my parents came to this country for the opportunities for me, right? For the opportunities for myself and my brother and my sister to maybe do the things that were going to lead to success, not necessarily to get your dream job. And I remember sometimes I would say, I think one of the things I want to do in my life is possibly be a professional athlete. That was immediately shot down and scoffed at, right? Like we didn't come to America for you to be an athlete. We could have stayed in Jamaica and you could have been Usain Bolt for that. Like but you obviously weren't fast enough for that endeavor. So we didn't really get into that conversation, but because I'm this individual who's idealistic and because I'm always trying to figure out how I could reach my potential, I think I always was thinking about what I was going to do in the future. And obviously, being an athlete, I guess your dream would always be to be a professional athlete. Unfortunately, that dream was kind of snuffed out from me because I actually played with a professional athlete. And it's different when you dream about becoming a professional athlete and when the reality is practicing next to you. And he's just doing something totally different and performing at a higher level naturally than you are, right? And so I realized, yeah, probably being a professional athlete is probably not in my card just because I'm seeing it. Maybe I need to think about some other things. So I kind of looked at how, what my parents were doing. So my mom was a nurse. I didn't really have any interest in the science fields, but my dad was a business person and a leader. And my dad took on leadership roles wherever he was, whether he was an elder in church, whether he was a manager at his business, he worked for an insurance firm, whether he was just a leader in our family, in our extended family. He possessed these roles, and I think that's something that I saw and something that I gravitated to becoming a leader. And when you're growing up in the '90s and it's all about getting rich quick, well, if you're a leader and you want to get rich and you want to retire, then do business. And so that made a lot of sense to me. I'm going to go be a CEO. I'm going to run these companies. I'm a leader in my sports. I'm a leader in class. I'm doing a lot of good things in my estimation. So that kind of steered me towards the business route. And that's what I took as one of my majors in college. Like, I'm going to work in business. What I didn't realize was I was also ignoring hints and clues about who I actually was. Like, there were things that I was naturally doing that I was ignoring because I was pursuing this idea of who I was because of my dad, because of how people looked at me and that sort of thing, because of the leadership roles that I was pursuing in my sports. But I remember when I had an internship at Merrill Lynch, I remember thinking to myself, I don't know if this is really a great fit for me. I don't like managing people. Like, and I saw a lot of people that were managing people. They were managing systems. There was a lot of things that were going on in the business, like job tasks, that naturally didn't fit me. Now I'll do it, but it didn't naturally fit me. And again, another clue was out there. Like, I was in this internship program, and it got to a point where we didn't even have to dress up for the internship because they had us in the back room, like organizing their files, like from like 1976 and all this other stuff. And so I was working with some individuals. Who were also in the internship program on that. And of course, my INFP comes up to me and said, there's got to be a better way than this. Like, you have these smart individuals who are juniors in college who are taking this internship program at Merrill Lynch. Like, you got to find a way to do this. So me and my friend created a presentation. So we created a presentation on how they can better use their interns to not only have the interns experience the job to see if it's a good fit for them, but to see if they can recruit those individuals for that job. And I didn't care. I went up to the managers and I said, hey, we'd like to do a presentation. Like, knowing what I know now, like, managers don't have half an hour to listen to some kids talk about what they should be doing, but I didn't think so. Like, this comes, being a son of Dorothy and Barry Matthew, a person who's highly confident and believes that this is something that we should do. So we presented it to them and they loved it. Now, I don't think they changed their internship program, but again, hints, right? Hints saying you're not a manager, but you're a person who wants to figure out how to better things. You're a person who wants to increase capacity. You're a person who wants to help, whether it be people or systems, reach its potential. But of course, I'm ignoring it to the point where I try to get my MBA. So I'm still on my goal. I'm going to put on my suit and I'm going to be a financial advisor and I'm going to take my MBA. I graduated college in 4 years, but I have an extra year of football eligibility. So I'm going to graduate, which is great, graduate in 4, play my 5th year, and then start my MBA program, which, William & Mary will end up paying a year for. So I thought that would be great, except for I do horrible on standardized testing. And so my GMATs prevented me from that route. So I wasn't able to pursue the MBA. One of my friends who scored, excellently on it and who's actually very successful, Bryce Lee, who's actually very successful in Williamsburg as a financial consultant. I kind of look at him and think that could have been me. But then I see his work tasks when I'm down there and I'm like, I'm so glad that's because I'll give you so what he does is I'll come down for the football games. They'll be in the skybox and all that other stuff. And he's spending his entire time chumming it up with people and doing the social thing and getting people excited and comfortable just so that way they can maybe sign on to their program. Like I would have hated that, right? So I'm so glad that I didn't go that route. So
like, it's almost like the universe kind of intervened in a way, or God intervened in a way for you to not do so well on those GMATs and kind of like steering you in a different direction, so to speak.
Oh, so it was God that prevented me from scoring high on my GMAT. Like that, you know
I don't
what?
know.
That's perfect.
I don't know. I don't know. That's just what it
joking.
sounded like to me as I'm listening to your story.
All this time, I thought it was because I wasn't that smart.
But it was a blessing. It was a blessing in disguise, is what it sounds like to me, because that would not have been the right path for you, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, Edith, you're over here having me think a little bit about just the idea that, and I'm a believer in seeing that certain things happen for a reason, because it did scare me, because here's my situation. I've graduated William and Mary, but I don't have anywhere to go to school. So you have to, in order for you to play football, you have to be attending a school. So goodness, you talk about certain things happening and maybe God opening up a way. When the director of the business school said, no, we're not going to let you in. The next day, 2 people left. This is August. 2 people left the education program and opened up a space for me to get in there. And of course, I don't do well on my standardized testing, but I get in nonetheless. So you're right. It seems like I was being steered to that direction. And, as I'm looking through the careers that a person would do with a master's in education, I'm looking through it and I'm literally going through the book and saying, no, 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 teacher, absolutely not. Like, who would ever become a teacher? So I'm going through all these jobs. Professor, no, absolutely not. All these, I feel like these jobs don't fit. And then one stands out: director, athletic director. And I said, you know what? Yeah, with sports and leadership, I'm still on that kick, right? Managing, because I still haven't learned my lesson. I can do that. Here's what ended up happening. Once I finished playing football, I still had to finish up my master's degree. So in that spring, I decided, if I'm going to become an athletic director, why not become a coach and try to figure out what a coach goes through so I can better manage them, which is something I realized I never wanted to do. I can better manage them, right? But what I realized was coaching was exactly the field that I needed to go into, because now I'm doing things that I've always done. Now I'm doing things where I'm, trying to figure out how I can help people reach their potential. That's what a coach does. I'm able to get together with a group of people to figure out the best way for us to do certain things, for us to win football games. I'm able to do all these things. I'm able to solve problems. I'm able to process things. That's my introvert in me, right? Process things all the way down and be able to come up with certain things and figure things out. And that's my intuitive side. So once I got into coaching, I realized this is where I need to be. This is my fit. And I loved it so much that I didn't even finish my master's program. I just said, I was totally converted to being a coach. And because that was something that totally fit me. And actually what situation occurred that allowed me to come down to the high school level was I'm starting to listen to work fit and to do the things that fit me, right? And so now I'm starting to say to myself, as I become a college football coach, it's not just about developing your players. Now I have to go recruit other players. And now I'm spending more time recruiting players than I am developing my players. And I just said, I don't know, I'd rather just spend more time developing players. And I decided, you know what? You know who did a great job of that? My head football coach at Chantilly. I'm just going to do what he did. I'm going to become a head football coach in high school where I'm not recruiting. I'm going to focus on developing these players and helping them reach their potential. And that's going to help them become not only great football players, but good men, husbands, be able to, be great citizens and that sort of stuff. And that appealed to me. And I realized the only way I can do that was to be a teacher. So that led me to that role where I'm teaching, okay, but I'm also able to coach too as well. So it's just funny how at times I had ignored the clues of what I was really good at. I was giving advice to kids all the time when I was in school, right? I totally ignored that. I was always trying to help people reach their potential, totally ignored that. And really what it came down to, it was these situations that have occurred where I thought were roadblocks, where I thought those were obstacles in my career paths, were actually steering me to where I need to be. So my dream didn't really happen, but the reality is pretty good. And so I appreciate those roadblocks and those obstacles in getting me to where I eventually needed to be.
Yeah, yeah. It's not too fun to when you're in the midst of these tough times, like going through the roadblocks, but I think most of us do tend to come out better on the other side of things. We're able to look back and see, okay, now I know I had to go through this tough time, and you learn from it, right?
Yeah.
And we end up being better people for going through these tough times, I think.
Yeah. So did you have these great career dreams when you were growing up? How were
No,
things with you?
not really, not really. For sure, I never ever would have thought I'd be where I am now, which is, I do work in the corporate world now. And there's not very many ENFP types or INFP types where I work. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think I've gotten pretty good at morphing myself into a more ISTJ or ESTJ world. And I've learned a lot. But, like you were saying, there were a lot of painful lessons there. And for me, it's not a natural career fit. I can say that. But that doesn't mean it's the wrong place for me to be. I think for me, the earliest career dream I can remember was I wanted to be a singer. And what I loved about singing, it wasn't like the technical aspect of the music or anything like that. It was about performing and about making people smile and making people feel good. And then, I got to be school aged, and I wanted to be a teacher and then a writer. And I had that dream for a really long time. But as time went on, I can't say that I had any real specific career ideas. And I think that's the case for a lot of NP, intuitive perceiving types. We like ideas, and our ideas change. And sometimes we kind of suffer from the grass is always greener syndrome. It's kind of like what you were saying, Mark, that you had this dream of playing football, and then the reality, it didn't quite live up to the dream,
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us NP personality types, I think we have a lot of starts and stops in our careers. We may have trouble nailing down a college major, or we may drop out of college because we can't figure out what we want to do. When I talk about these topics, I like to encourage people to go back to their earliest childhood career dream if they can, and really think about that and dig deep before you get corrupted by the external world. What does your earliest career dream say about your values and what you enjoy? And for me, I have this very fuzzy kind of dream in the back of my head that it would still be fun to be a singer. I'm not going to lie. It might be kind of fun, at least that idea is there. But is that realistic? No flipping way. But the constant thing is that I still love to make people smile. I love to make people happy. And, even in my job now, I like to think that I do that every day in my job. I feel like, the universe had me get into this type of field that I'm in now because of that, because I'm bringing a certain energy there that was not there before me. Yeah. And I think it helps people. And that's pretty cool.
I'm really glad we're talking about this, because I feel like there's a lot of not just students, but just adults that struggle with, why am I on earth? Like what was my particular vocation? Those sorts of things that I was actually born to do, right? And I think a lot of times our earliest dreams, the things that we naturally do or enjoy, gives us clues to what we really want to do. So when you evaluate what you're talking about, you wanted to be a singer, And I always call like that's kind of like the iceberg, right? Like we see the iceberg of singing, but what is underneath that iceberg is truly what you want to do. Like, so the iceberg effect of there's certain things that we see that we enjoy doing, but why do we enjoy doing those things? Like you're saying, like singing allowed you to make people happy and it allowed you to get them going and inspire them and that sort of stuff. That's what you thought singing did. But that's not the only profession that allows you to do that. The big question is once we
Exactly.
figure out why we do something, then now it's okay, what is the actual job that allows me or it gives me the affords me the opportunity to do those things. And I felt like that's what you're doing. You're figuring out ways to do what singing allowed you to do younger. You're finding other ways to do that same thing, if that makes sense.
Exactly, exactly. Now, to be fair, I still love music, all kinds of music. I was really lucky to have parents who encouraged this in me. And, I had music lessons from a really young age, probably learned how to read music before I could read. And, that was really, really cool in my development. So it's not just about, making people happy and all. The secondary is, I mean, just music for the sake of music. But that's just me. And I think that what you're saying there, Mark, about just digging deep, there's definitely something to that, just a lot of self-reflection. And I wish that more of us would do this today. And I wish more parents would encourage their kids to do that for themselves.
Yeah. What are you like? What are you naturally good at? Like, what are you passionate about? Again, it goes about these are clues that I really believe that your soul is giving you, saying, this is what I want to do. Allow me to do more of that. And I think, unfortunately, what we do as a society, we say, please, you can't do that. You have to then change who you are and transform yourself to something that we approve, right? I get it. Like I know we have to work and get money for something, but at the end of the day, I really feel like we as human beings are just trying to let out who we are into the world, right? And I think sometimes when we go through things, our natural gifts are screaming at us, do what you are, do what you are. Like just find something, a career that allows you to do what you are. If I would have known about MBTI and career fit, right, as I was growing up, I would have realized that business wasn't the fit for my personality. Like I would have realized that managing people wasn't something that I should do. What it really was coaching people. Like that's what really got me fired up and got me excited. I might be in a totally different career now. And so I think it's really important as we grow as, parents who want to see their child achieve and do great things as adults. I think it's important that we say, what are the clues my child is showing? And when you become, a teenager or a young adult, what are the clues that your body's giving you and telling you that you should be or you should do? Like these things are examples of certain ways to find perfect fits. And one of the things that we're doing now is when you don't find the perfect fit, right? Because we don't have a system that allows you to actually find your natural fit. So when you're in that role where you don't really quite fit well, can you contribute your natural gifts to that space? And I think for me, that's what I try to do. It's like, so I'm always trying to do what you are motto in my own job too right now. So as in my job as a teacher and as a coach, I'm always going to now contribute my personal gifts to my environment. So everybody knows this who either was a student of mine or a player of mine. I'm going to have these things called life lessons with coach or Mr. Matthew. And like I said, if you're a player and you're it's coming, where Mr. Matthew is going to contribute his personality gifts to you. So that way I'm essentially in my job doing what I am, which is something that I really appreciate. And I really encourage everybody to figure out how they can contribute their personality and their gifts and their strengths to their natural environment.
Yeah, yeah. And they are lucky to have you, Mark. So, and I hear these things a lot. Like if I'd only known about the MBTI when I was younger. And my response to that is that we're living in a world where change is possible. Career change is possible. It doesn't matter how old you are. There are a lot of resources out there that can help you figure things out and start a new path if that's what you want to do. And yeah, we do have bills to pay, and it might be harder as an adult to start over again, but it's not impossible. It's a values call. And the fact is that, yeah, you're probably going to have to give up something to go back to school and get another credential or change paths. And it'll be time, it might be some money, but is it worth it? And that's a question only you can answer. And look, I'm not here to say that you should or shouldn't. But I do think that if you're asking yourself these types of questions, then it's time to really think about yourself and what you want and seek out a career coach or a career counselor if you need someone to help you through the process. And some people do really well just by reading books or listening to podcasts or audiobooks or whatever. What colors your parachute, or
Hmm.
the Myers-Briggs book that I know you've referenced before, Mark, is the Do What You Are by Paul Teager and Barbara Barron-Teager. And there are other books as well. And COVID really encouraged or even forced us in a lot of cases to rethink our careers. So, like you said, Mark, we spend so much of our time at work, and it really should be doing something that we want to do, not something that makes us miserable.
Absolutely. And kind of on that point, can you talk a little bit about the importance of knowing your ideal environment for your personality? Like, why is that important?
Yeah. So there are a lot of reasons why knowing your personality type can help you out in not only finding the right career fit, but the right workplace fit. First off, it helps improve communication. I mean, that's a big one. And, we've talked about this before. Knowing who you're dealing with will help you determine how to best approach the people you're working with, like your peers and your supervisor. And, if you're a manager, the people who work under you too. And by having an understanding of how each person works best, you can better gauge what they need to work effectively. And that improves teamwork and collaboration, and it can help resolve conflicts too. So, let me give you an example in my workplace. So, I have a few direct reports who are self reported introverts, right?
Mm.
They need those telework days. They are not as productive when they're in the office. And, that's just because there's a lot of banter going on. There's a lot of noise around, and people are talking, and people come up and interrupt them. So I make sure that those folks have their telework days as much as it's possible for me to do so. I also have a number of J's, or judging types, on my team. And me being a perceiver, I know I'm not going to get the best out of them if I don't do my part to stay organized. I try as best as I can to, if we have a meeting, I want it to be productive. I want it to be on time. I don't want it to go over time. I need to plan out what the purpose of the meeting is. Make sure that I'm ready, because I don't want to waste anybody's time, especially J types, right? And then, most importantly, I take the time to get to know each of these people as individuals. What kind of tasks do they like to do? What do they not like to do? And this way we can divide the work up better. Now, of course, sometimes we all, we have to do things we don't like to do, but the more that we can take the time to get to know each other's strengths and weaknesses and personality types, the better we can all work together. And I like to think that I have a pretty good team, and that we do a lot to help each other out. We have a lot of cohesion, and I think we all just genuinely like each other, and we do good work too.
That's so valuable, right? It's so valuable, the points that you're making when it comes to teamwork. When you look at the acronym, a lot of times people will use this team, together, everybody achieves more. It's absolutely the case. Like, we accomplish more working collectively than we do like working individually. And so I think it's really, really important to understand each individual's personality strengths and try to create an environment that allows that to happen. And I think probably the best example of that is the body, right? Like, the body does that. Like, the body's not trying, like, the body parts and the individual organs aren't all trying to do the same thing. The heart has its role, and it's in an environment to do the right thing. Like, the lungs has its role, and it's in the environment to do the right thing. And by allowing us to work together, you have a really, really well-functioning body. And I think that's the case is what are the strengths that you have? Put them in an environment that allows them to do their work. And then together, as being a manager, how does that all work together for everything that we want, which is productivity and all that other stuff. So I think that's really, really a great point when it comes to how do you create an ideal workplace environment. It's not necessarily maybe even careers as much as it's like there's a bunch of things we got to get done. Who best fits those roles to get those things done? I think that's really, really important role for that. So I like that point. So Edith, I know you're the MBTI practitioner, but I've been doing a little bit of research. So one of the books that you read or you talked about was the book by Paul Tigger and Barbara Tigger, Do What You Are. And so I looked up your personality type and the work environment that best fits you, ENFP. And so what I want to do is I want to ask you some questions about your personality type and the work environment and just try to figure out how idealistic is that fit for you? Do you want to play that game real quick?
This sounds like so much fun, Mark. I am game for this game. So, okay, so you're going to ask me questions about my current work environment. Is that right?
No, we don't talk about current work environment.
Ideal.
Because remember, okay. I'm ideal. Like I don't talk about what you currently are. I want to know how to help you reach your potential. I don't care about your current status.
Well, that's good because I don't want any of my current work people tuning in and hearing if I say something bad. So yeah, ideal works for me.
It's perfect. Okay. All right. So first question. So the title of your personality type in the book is called Anything is Possible. Do you think that best reflects you?
Yes, that's a pretty good motto for me. Anything is possible. Yes.
You've had experiences where you feel like you wanted to experience a different, like a wide variety of things. Like, do you consider that as part of your, like, were there multiple careers you wanted to pursue as a?
Yeah, I definitely like to experience things, variety of things for sure, because like any ENFP type, I'm going to get bored. This is, unfortunately, one of fortunately or unfortunately, I'm going to say this is one of the hallmarks of an ENFP type is that we may get bored easily doing the same old thing day after day. No, we need variety. And one way I think that we can get a lot of variety is have a lot of different experiences.
So you like to, in your ideal workplace, you want to be able to experience different things and you don't necessarily want to stay in one activity or one thing for too long.
No, absolutely not. No, if I had to do the same thing day after day, I would go crazy.
I got you. No question. Yep. That's interesting. I like that. All right. Second question. Okay. How well does this sentence match you? ENFPs enjoy the creative process, especially if it offers opportunities for collaboration and to be inspired by working with others. The more unconstrained and flexible the working environment, the better.
I'm just laughing here. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 for sure. I am an endless supply of clever new ideas. The newer, the more out of the box, the better. Yeah. And if I could be around a whole bunch, like I'm just thinking about other ENFPs, if we just, had this creative process together, which come to think of it, I have had before. And it's, it's a little overwhelming. It can be even a little overwhelming for me, just all of these very extroverted people shooting out all sorts of different ideas. And it's just like one idea after another. And we just keep trying to one up each other is kind of how it feels. And then, nothing gets accomplished, but that's okay. I mean, so what? Nothing gets accomplished. We're having fun.
Yeah, I could only imagine being an introvert, that experience. I would probably need to get a timeout.
Yeah. I mean, even after a couple hours, me too, I think.
Yeah, no question. Okay. Question number 3. Do you take the needs and concerns of other people into consideration and devise innovative and humane solutions to their problems?
Yeah, a 10 out of 10 again. Yeah, I probably to the detriment of myself a lot of the time. I am very, very others focused. I will admit it. And one of the things that I'm constantly doing inside my head when I meet somebody new is I'm typecasting them and trying to figure out what their Myers-Briggs type is. And yeah, I know, to all the type practitioners, if you're tuning in right now, like, I know I'm not supposed to be doing that. And you all know you do it too. So it's something like we can't turn it off. But it's not like I'm trying to judge somebody. No. I like to say I'm a very non-judgmental person, as non-judgmental as one can be. That's me. What I'm trying to do is trying to figure them out so I can find a way to best relate to them and best communicate with them. And, I know that one time, Mark, we were talking about having this win-win situation. And I feel that too. Yeah, I'm looking for a win-win. And if I'm being honest with myself, it's more about the other person winning over myself. Yeah.
I can relate with that. That's our F feeling type preference really screaming at us there.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I'll end up with this last question, because it seems like a lot of these like work environments are really, really matching you. Let me see if I can go 5 for 5. Okay.
Okay.
How well does this sentence match you? ENFPs are born entrepreneurs. They enjoy working for themselves because it gives them freedom and flexibility and the opportunity to choose projects they wish to work on and people they want to work with.
Well, this is where I'm not going to go for a 10 out of 10 on this one, but this is just me, because I know there are so many ENFP entrepreneur types out there. And in fact, I did a podcast on this a couple of years ago, and I can relate to the ideas of this. But for me personally, it's being an entrepreneur myself. I have a side gig as an entrepreneur. I have to say that I like the stability of having a regular paycheck and a regular schedule. Somehow I think that helps me. If I don't have these deadlines, I'm not somebody who can have self-imposed deadlines quite so easily. I feel like I need somebody to help me with the more monotonous aspects of the job, like accounting and taxes and all the yucky things like that.
Yeah.
So it's half and half.
You know what's so funny about that, though, because, I think what it's saying to entrepreneurs, especially if you're ENFP, I think it's going more towards the point of you want freedom and flexibility. So it's almost like if you took the entrepreneurship word out, I think you'd be able to relate to that, right? Because another aspect that is a part of your work environment type is I can become overwhelmed by details and paralyzed by the need for organization. I would prefer someone else to take over the routine and the follow-up, which is part of the reason why you said you don't think you would be an entrepreneur because of that. But the work type does show that you guys don't want to deal with all the details of that sort of stuff. So that's pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. And flexibility. Yeah, definitely need that, need autonomy, whatever I'm doing. So, okay. So I sound like a typical ENFP. So that's a relief.
Well, yeah. And I think what's even helpful is if I was a manager and you were able to articulate that to me, like if you were able to say, hey, these are the type of work tasks that I like. Here's some of the work environments that I like. Even if I had that cataloged in my brain, I'm not saying I'd be able to change things, but if I had the opportunity to, if I knew that information, would I? Like, just by you articulating those things that you like to do, powerful could that be for a manager to manage you in a way to help you reach your top potential and help you enjoy your job? That can be something that's really, really, important and important for us to know.
Yeah, for real. If you are lucky enough to have a manager who supports that and supports your growth, for sure. Okay, so I think it should be my turn now, Mark, to ask you some questions, because I have this book too. I have this book, Do What You Are. So
great.
And the INFP section here. So how well do you think this sentence describes you? Still waters run deep.
Ooh, I think what I could really, really identify with is runs deep. I think everything I do is processed at a very, very deep level. And matter of fact, when I would have discussions with people, I would say, "Hey, are you ready to put on your scuba gear? Like, because I'm going to go deep. Like, we are going to go deep into this conversation." So I definitely can relate with the deep aspect of it. And I guess the still portion, I guess I can consider that too, because I do like to be by myself, not with a lot of commotion and that sort of stuff. So I could definitely see how that would relate with my situation. Absolutely. I can see that.
Okay. So you might have a little bit of, movement here on the waters, not completely still, but definitely running deep.
Definitely running deep, like very, very deep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I believe that about you. Okay. And how well do these statements match your ideal work environment? So one, allows me to help others grow and develop and realize their potential.
Yeah, that's Mark Matthew. Like, it's not what I like to do. That's who I am. Like, understanding people and helping them reach their potential is exactly why I was born. And because of my ability to figure things out and my deep processing system, it's really allowed me to be really self-reflective and to figure that out. So any opportunity that I have, like if I see you, like I'm gonna be like, "Hey, how's the weather?" And then I'm probably gonna go in some type of deep questioning to have you process like why you exist in the world. Like that's
wow.
my second question.
Okay.
That's where I'm going. So
All right.
yeah, like it's just to try to get to know people to a point where I can help them reach their potential. So that defines me. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Perfect match.
Okay. Allows me to work toward fulfilling my ideals and not be limited by political, financial, or other obstacles.
Yeah, ding, ding, ding. 10 out of 10. Ding,
right.
ding, ding. Like that's me.
Okay.
I mean, how many times on the show have I mentioned that I'm idealistic?
You're an idealist. Yeah.
Nothing makes me more frustrated than also the politics of things. So like, I totally get that.
I hear you there. Okay, next one. Involves understanding people and discovering what makes them tick. Allows me to develop deep one-on-one relationships with others.
You know the answer.
Yeah.
I mean,
You've said that numerous times as well. Yep.
Like, come on.
And then of course, this one is you as well. It's always seeking an ideal situation.
That was really good. Like I didn't know that I would be such an ideal fit for the environment that book was mentioning. That's pretty awesome. I got a question. What advice would you give any students in high school about working and finding the work environment that fits them, since we've been talking about that?
Yeah, that's a good question because with high school students, you know what? Get to know your strengths and your interests. This is the time to try different things if you're up for it. So think about some extracurricular activities that interest you and start participating in some of those activities and see if you like them. As an adult, it's harder to find groups and extracurricular activities. And so when you're young, it's easy for you to kind of find whatever you like with your school or youth groups or something like that. So definitely, I would say take advantage of that. And if you found some groups or activities that you like, take some time to reflect on why you like them. What is it about that activity that really excites you? And think about themes. Do you like participating in groups, or do you prefer independent activities, for example? And then think about things that you absolutely don't like to do. And what is it that you don't like about these things? There are a lot of websites that you can go to that can help you with this, but also don't forget that you have teachers like Mr. Matthew and guidance counselors who are there to help you too. So think about those people who you gravitate towards in your life and talk to them. Take the time to ask them about their career paths and listen to their advice. If it's possible, I know, Mark, you mentioned before an internship you had, and some high school students can have internships as well. So try an internship and get a taste for what the working world is like. And again, there are tons of resources out there to help you. The only thing you need to do is to just take that first step to ask for help. But once you do that, I think you're going to be amazed at the doors that start opening up for you.
Wow. Like, what amazing advice to give an individual who's still trying to process and figure out what their future might look like. That's great. I've just been really, really blessed at Edith with just this discussion. I think that work is so important. We spend so much time there, and I think it's so important for us to really break this down. So I really, really appreciate that. But last question I have for you. What advice do you have for our adults working in careers that don't quite necessarily fit their personalities or their strengths?
Yeah, many, unfortunately. That goes for many people out there. And I'm going to say much the same thing that I said for our young people. Take some time to think about what it is that you like to do, what you don't like to do, what your strengths and your weaknesses are, what your values are, and what's realistic at this point in your life. And again, there are lots of resources out there to help you and guide you.
Absolutely. So on that note, if our listeners wanted to find out more about the MBTI and work, like, where should they go?
So one of my favorite resources is actually another podcast series I did called the Myers-Briggs for Midlife Career Changers. And this is a 16-part series, one episode for each of the 16 Myers-Briggs types. And it focuses on career paths for each personality type. And each episode is geared towards one type. So I have one episode for our ISTJ friends and one for our ENFJ friends and so on. And you can find links to these on my website at topcareer.com. And they're also available on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Man, that's great to hear. I definitely want to tune into that INFP podcast now. So I'm making a note on that, Edith. But Edith, with that, I think we're going to have to wrap things up for this episode. Hey, folks, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Edith, for your expertise, and we'll be seeing you again next time. Thanks for tuning in. Follow us on social media and your favorite podcast platform.
And please reach out to me on LinkedIn and on my website at topcareer.com for more updated content. While the Myers-Briggs and MBTI are trademarks of the Myers-Briggs Foundation, viewpoints expressed here are our own.